Señor Cooler.
Hello, I'm Brogan Brainstorm, and this is my E3 recap for Xbox's 2015 press conference. For me, Microsoft has fallen very far. Back at the dawn of the last generation, Xbox 360 was pretty much undisputed as the winner, as the king of the hill for the console wars. Nintendo was off pursuing casuals, and they were doing their own thing, as they always do. And Sony was stuck in the mud while their loading screens were bad, and they didn't have a lot of games back then. And so while Sony was stuck in the mud, Xbox 360 picked up a lot of people, including myself, with quality games or quality versions of multi-platform games like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and exclusives like Mass Effect 1 and BioShock and Lost Odyssey. And so I was picked up by, and Halo, of course Halo. I was so into Halo back in those days. And then it all kind of started to fall apart with the Kinect. And at the same time, Sony was starting to game Steam finally. Not actual Steam, but they were starting to get exclusives, games, Uncharted, Killzone. These games were working well for them. Sony worked very hard to get back. Sony worked very hard to gain a lot of support. And Xbox 360 pursued mastering motion control, the fad that Nintendo was succeeding at. They wanted to excel at that, to make the Kinect the definitive motion control experience. But it fell apart. Kinect turned out just to be a fad. And then when the Xbox One came out, it was all still falling apart and getting worse even. With all of their DRM policies, the always online, the anti-used game stuff, and the forced Kinect. The Kinect forced on us to make, and it made the system more expensive than the PS4 by $100. And then Microsoft stuck to their guns. When everyone was criticizing them, the Adam Orth deal with it scenario, Microsoft stuck to their guns. They went to E3 and they said, this is happening. This is happening. Deal with it. And they were crucified. The fans hated it. They revolted. They went all in on the PS4. And Microsoft panicked and backpedaled and reversed and stripped the Xbox One of pretty much all identity, of everything that made it a unique system, everything that they thought would work out, the good and the bad. And eventually, last year, they finally debundled the Kinect. And now the Xbox One is, as opposed to a system we hate, it's now a system we're indifferent to. And unlike Sony and unlike Nintendo, Xbox is not strong on the first-party content. And the first-party content they got, there's not much they can work with on that either. Bungie doesn't work on Halo anymore, and Fable sucks. It's always sucked. Maybe you don't like me to say that, after all this is the Xbox recap, but I've played Fable. The good one, the best one from what the fans say was Fable 2. It sucked. It sucked a lot. Molyneux is overpromising. He has overpromised his entire career. He's still doing it. Unrepentantly. And he's still doing it. It's the Molyneux cycle. And I don't know if he's working on Fable Legends or not, but Fable Legends is happening. And it's a series that has never garnered any love, from me anyway. Disappointment after disappointment. I don't know. I don't know what there is to stick around for, other than Molyneux's promises and his overhyping. Maybe you've gotten caught up in the hype, but I do not see how you could possibly have any love for a series that never had a high point, in my opinion. I just don't see it. As for Halo, I was there for the high points, definitely. So in this conference, all of it is an uphill battle for Microsoft. They have so much that they need to fix. But on the other hand, it's still fertile land. They have a growing fan base, miles behind Sony, miles behind the PlayStation 4. But people are buying it, and there are people who are still on the fence on the next generation consoles anyway, regardless of which system, like me. And some Xbox fans have shown that they are willing to forgive the problems, the backpedaling, and the lunacy that happened around the Xbox One's reveal and E3 and launch. People have shown that some people have shown that they are willing to forgive. I'm not. Not at all. It's the kind of thing where Microsoft showed their true colors, and everything now is a disguise. In a complete vacuum, Microsoft showed who they really are, what they really want out of their games, and then when they backpedaled, now, on a face value, their system is just flat out nothing special next to the PS4. We've been betrayed, in my opinion. We've been completely and utterly betrayed. And just because they spin it as it's what the fans want, it's a situation where they are physically incapable of continuing without doing what the fans want. Because the things that Microsoft want are not the things we want. We do not have the same goals, my friend. Having all that said, Microsoft, fighting an uphill battle, did a pretty solid job. I think the biggest problem is that the entire press conference for E3 2015, for all of Xbox, for all of Microsoft, it all went very, very fast. They tried to cram everything into it, and I swear, most of the stuff that they showed probably wasn't on screen for more than 60 seconds, speakers and all. And so it was moving so fast that there was no real way to really process what we were seeing, especially not as journalists taking notes and having articles to write and stuff. There's no way we could keep up with all that. But they started off strong with Halo 5. A pretty acceptable presentation. Gameplay, campaign focus, and one thing that I've been liking about Halo 5 is the story. Halo has always focused on campaigns. They've always made sure that their campaigns offer something cool, interesting, unique, good story. At least in comparison to most other shooter games. And so in this one, Master Chief is possibly a traitor, and then there's this guy there's other Spartan, I think, that's hunting him down, or whatever's going on there. Overall, the Halo 5 Guardians showing was pretty decent. I left Halo when Bungie left Halo. Not because Bungie left Halo, but because I was just kind of becoming disenchanted and worn out from all the Halo gameplay, and I didn't want to pay for Xbox Live anymore. They haven't changed that. I don't think they will, especially now that Sony's doing the same thing. They had an exclusive, which is this game called Recore, which, based on the cinematic trailer, you're wandering the wasteland as a female protagonist, and your companion is some sort of AI in an orb that you can transplant into other robots and make those robots, a variety of robots, do whatever. They can go kamikaze and self-destruct. They can fight by your side and all that. And once they die, you just pick up the orb and carry it around until you transplant it to another robot. Looks pretty cool. I think it's an Xbox One exclusive. So a lot of times they were trying to play up the exclusivity, whatever. A lot of times they were trying to play that up, where it would be like a timed exclusive, or it would be Xbox One and PC exclusive. And it's tough to keep track of all that because I have a PC and I'm never getting an Xbox One. Okay, never say never, but of the big three, it's going to be the last one I get. I'll get a Vita before I get Xbox One. But when they say it's console exclusive, and again, this is all going so fast, we don't really have time to process the information to sort out exactly what do you mean when you say exclusive. But they also have, so they have Forza 6. They kind of slipped up in that conference where they decided to lower a really nice looking car from the ceiling of the floor, like of the press conference floor. And they lowered a car down and whatever. No one cares because you're not supposed to care. We also had Rainbow Six Siege, and if you buy the Xbox One version of that, you get free copies of Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2. That's a solid deal. That's a pretty darn good deal. We also have Gigantic, which is... you play as a bunch of anthropomorphized animals in like kind of a team kind of setting where it's all co-op. Didn't get to see much of it, but it looked cool. The characters were well designed. We also have Tacoma from the makers of Gone Home. It's an Xbox exclusive for One. This one is a timed exclusive for Xbox One and PC, and so after a while it will get off that to another console. And right as I'm starting to think that it's a 2001 A Space Simulator, they instantly just kind of cut to the next thing, and I'm like, I was watching that. Come on, give me a sec to process all this. Then we have Ashen, which is a console exclusive. It's got face... I think the characters didn't have faces, so it was looking really weird and kind of cool. And then they cut to something else. We have Beyond Eyes, which is another timed exclusive for Xbox One and PC, where you play a blind girl, and as you walk around, you can kind of daredevil sense your immediate surroundings. So that looks really cool. I'd seen that trailer before, but it's cool to know that they're supporting it, that they are promoting it. And then they cut to something else. Then there's Cuphead, which looks exactly like a 1930s Steamboat Willie style cartoon. There's not much like hub display where like you have your health bar and like your magic bar and the items you have and all that. It looks almost exactly like you're playing in a cartoon. As in, if you weren't told it's a game and you just saw footage of it, you might actually think it's an actual cartoon before you realize it's a game. Then there's Ion, which is from the makers of DayZ, and it has space astronauts in it, and then I don't have time to see what the rest of it was, because again, they just moved on to something else before I could even start to care about it. And a lot of these games are like seemingly fairly well polished indie games, and they're not lingering on them at all. They're just cramming everything into this conference. I'm not going in order, by the way. I wanted to get the exclusives out of the way first. Oh, what else was there? Oh yes, Rise of the Tomb Raider, which involves a lot of Ice Climber remake. It's a brutal and harsh game, and I'm really glad that it's really cool that Lara Croft is moving beyond her lol sex joke boobs joke status, and she's actually forming her own audience in the game world. That she's being taken seriously. Go, Lara. Oh yes, another exclusive, Rare Replay. Microsoft owns Rareware, and they have 30 rare games for $30. Xbox One exclusive. I don't know if it's timed, but it is exclusive. That's an impressive show. Fans have been demanding that for years. A lot of people were thinking they were going to do something with Battletoads. Battletoads is in this collection. I thought they thought it was going to be like an indie style remake, like the Double Dragon remakes or whatever, or like a lot of stuff that's been remade. But no, it's a collection of Rare's best games. I think I think the collection's missing a few, like some that are where Rare did work on another franchise. I think like Star Fox and all that. But it's an impressive move. There's also Sea of Pirates, which started off with some Pirates of the Caribbean style music. Like I just instantly recognized, oh, this sounds cool. This sounds like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. That looks pretty cool. It's like a co-op pirate game where you're playing as different characters on a ship. I haven't played Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but it looked cool too, and it looked very stylized. I loved it. Microsoft also demoed the Microsoft HoloLens with Minecraft, which they own Mojang and Minecraft now. And here's where it starts to not get so impressive. And I knew that they would do this. It's the fad for the year. It's VR technology. And you can't show VR technology on stage effectively. You can't. You physically cannot. The customer will never know exactly what they're getting into. Until you place HoloLens or Project Morpheus or the Oculus Rift, they will never know exactly how good it is until they put it on their heads. It's not the sort of thing you can really show off in a trailer. It's not the sort of thing you can show off in some kind of on-stage hologram or whatever, or however they did it. It looked highly technical. It looked like fancy technology. But there's no way you can replicate that experience on stage and show the audience that. You've got to put that device on their heads. Otherwise, it's just completely pointless. Let me go back to some of the stuff they also went over that's not exclusive. Oh, yes. The biggest news of the Microsoft conference is they have reintroduced Xbox 360 backwards compatibility. Your old Xbox games, including the digital ones, now work on Xbox One. Big move. Bombshell. Even Sony didn't do that one. I swear the audience went nuts over that. They loved it. This should be, from what I've heard, this should be in effect around Christmas. They said it was like over 100 titles, so there may be a few games left out of the gap, but I'm sure they got all the popular ones. I can't state enough how big a move that is. I think the Wii U does have backwards compatibility with Wii games, but there weren't that many that were interesting. But I know the PS4 does not in any way have PS3 backwards compatibility. They also unveiled a new Xbox One controller. They called it the Elite controller. It's got extra features on it. If I'm ever interested in an Xbox One, if you're interested in an Xbox One, you might want to look that up. It's a nice, improved controller. They also had Fallout 4 footage. I'm glad that they showed slightly different gameplay from the Bethesda conference. They also announced that mods from the PC will be available for use on the Xbox One. That's surprising. They also had a little bit of EA moment where they talked about EA Access, which has been an Xbox One exclusive since August last year, and has been completely unknown to me until now. In addition to Xbox's typical games with gold, there has been a subscription service similar to PlayStation Plus, in addition to games for gold, like separate and in addition, where you get EA games for a subscription fee. I don't know what that fee is, but it's mainly EA sports games, Battlefield 4, and some casual games like I know one of the Need for Speed games and the original Plants vs Zombies. And so now they're up in the ante on this, and they have decided to that not only will this continue to be an Xbox One exclusive feature, again, that's why I never heard of it before. That's why it seemed like the audience didn't hear about it either. There wasn't much clapping for it. In addition to those games I mentioned, you're also getting Titanfall free and Dragon Age Inquisition. That's pretty solid. That's pretty cool. At the same time, they also announced Plants vs. Zombie Garden Warfare 2. They also showed off Dark Souls 3, which is set to release in early 2016. I didn't think it was Dark Souls at first, because I'm like, didn't they just do Bloodborne for PS4? But yeah, Dark Souls 3 coming. It's almost definitely multi-platform, but it's cool that they announced it there. Then we got more Division footage. Apparently, Division is almost done. I think I heard somewhere that it's going to be released in December, so looking forward to that. Makes sense, though, since the game takes place in Christmas, or after an apocalypse that happened on Christmas. Microsoft then wrapped things up with Gears of War. They're announcing Gears of War Ultimate Edition. I think it's just the first Gears of War game, and not Gears of War 2, which is the one everyone says the story is pretty good. But Gears of War 1, maybe 2? I think it's just 1. The Ultimate Xbox One edition of that's coming, so that's happening. Then there's Gears of War 4, which was their big... I think Xbox is the only one that's ended with something... Well, I guess Ubisoft did too, but Xbox One ended with a surprise reveal of Gears of War 4. Actually, I think they just called it Gears 4. We got a Furious 7 kind of deal going on here. But anyway, it seemed to be leaning more towards horror than from what I've seen with the rest of the series. And by horror, I mean like Resident Evil 6 style horror. But it kind of works better for Gears of War because Gears of War is not supposed to be scary. Resident Evil 4 used to be, but whatever. Overall, Microsoft showed a pretty strong performance, a lot better than they're usually known for. They kept the BS to a minimum. They didn't have a lot of crazy stunts. It was mainly just that car and the Microsoft HoloLens. They kept the focus on the games, which is what they should have done. They didn't really blow people's socks off. I don't think it was physically possible for them to. But they made an honest and impressive effort. Will this close the gap with the PlayStation 4? Will this sell more Xbox Ones? If I were a betting man, I'd say no, not at all, not really. But it definitely is a morale booster, I would say. And it probably will sell a few systems. Maybe just... I don't think it will close the gap, but it will keep them afloat and it will keep morale high. Especially now that the Kinect is dead. That was a cancerous infested arm that they needed to amputate. And they're a lot healthier for having gotten rid of it. And it shows already. We'll see how this plays out for them. Will I buy an Xbox One? No. PS4 and Wii will all get first, and then a Vita. But an Xbox One, that's the last thing on my priority list.